Welcome back everybody to another episode of Destiny Alpha gameplay right here. Today we're looking at some of the exploratory missions that they offer you in the alpha, and what that essentially is you being dropped on the same map again, now the difference being that you can explore it freely. So you are not bound to checkpoints and set story missions almost. Much rather you can just run about freely, go to these beacons, then interact with them, and they will give you little side missions. They're not anything dramatic. Most of the time it's like kill a certain amount of enemies in the area, or go to an area and kill the big dude, or there's also like scout missions where you have to reach a certain like high point somewhere in the distance and then scout the area essentially. And there's all kinds of other stuff where you, I don't know, like have to scan environments, stuff like that. It's all not dramatic, but what gives this whole mode a really nice feeling is the fact that everything is free. You can just run around and do your own stuff. You could also summon in a vehicle, which is something I don't believe I'm going to end up doing here in this gameplay, unfortunately. But probably the last episode, not even last, but in the next episode, I should say, I'm then going to make use of that a little bit more, so you can totally be excited about all of that. We will ride a little, I don't know, like almost hover bike in the next episode as well. But I don't know. What is there still to talk about? I already went into detail on what I think about Destiny last time, so let's maybe today focus much rather on what there still is to the game, what the mechanics really are, like behind the scenes, what the weapons are that you can buy, because I actually had the chance to play more of the game earlier today. Went ahead and played more of this very mission right here, so the exploration one, and also was joined by a subscriber of mine. We ended up talking a little bit about the game, went on to do some missions then, and also had a random event happen, which I also should probably go into detail a little bit more. Unfortunately, it's something I didn't record and I'm not going to be able to show off. Then again, maybe it's also nice for you guys because you can then explore it like firsthand whenever you get the game, if you then decide to get Destiny. But alright, here we go. So I was joined by a subscriber, as I was saying. We were together in a squad, in like a fire team, as I believe they call it. And yeah, it was the two of us running around doing missions at that point. And I believe we were on a mission where you had to kill a specific type of enemy, right? They give you an enemy type and you then have to kill those. They will drop certain items. You have to collect those items. And once that whole bar is filled up, you have completed the mission. And that is what we were doing until we then were interrupted by a public event, as I believe they call it. And what that was just a huge, I don't know exactly what it was, but some kind of satellite almost, so very much metallic and big, and I really couldn't tell you, but that just came crushing down straight up into the ground, and you then had to go to it, interact with it, and it was saying that you should go ahead and protect it while your little robot guy is like looking for information in that thing or something like that. So what then happened was all these freaking battleships actually came flying in. They just morphed in right above you. They were all, like, for the entirety of that whole mission, just going in and out and dropping off all kinds of enemies. Also enemies that I'd never seen before at that point. So that was really interesting and just one of the coolest moments to me in Destiny. The kind of funny thing with this whole alpha and the time that I spent with it is that when I first did the mission, so the introductory one that we covered last time, I was enjoying my time, right? I wasn't really mind blown, but I was really having fun with it. And then once I went on to this mission right here, the open exploratory one, I then had a really good time with it. And at that point I was really digging the game and just having a blast. And I didn't expect then to enjoy the other mission after that, which is, by the way, what we're covering in that next episode too. So not only the vehicles, but also another more driven, like story-driven mission. With that one, I then even had more fun because we ended up fighting all kinds of bosses, and that was really exciting. So it kept giving me these like more enjoyable experiences every time that I then booted up the game and played some more of it. And after that mission, since that is basically all the content the alpha then has to give you. I didn't expect to have a moment that tops even that, but the whole public event that I was talking about totally did that for me. It was really awesome because we were, as I was saying, two, right? It was me and a subscriber, and we went ahead and did that. And then we were actually joined by 2 other guys, so it was the 4 of us battling this horde of monsters that would just be dropped in by like these big battleships, and that was a really neat experience. I really had a great time with that, especially because it was so unexpected, right? We were just running around doing these minor missions, and all of a sudden this big event happens. And I mean, we of course also got some XP out of that. I believe I must have picked up like a new weapon in that as well, and that was just one of the best experiences that I've had with the game so far. But let's maybe talk about that a little bit more. I did say I picked up a new weapon, so now, having spent a little bit more time with Destiny, I have actually now had a chance to look at more of the like weapon types that they have in the game, also the stuff that you can buy in the hub, or tower as I believe it's called, which we also checked out already in the last episode. But yeah, so what I now have, so I mean, of course, here in this gameplay I now am rocking a burst rifle, which is new. We didn't have that in the last episode, and also a fantastic, really just fantastic sniper rifle as well. But now I already have new stuff, so I'm now using a like single shot rifle, which at first wasn't a little underwhelming because of course you fire much slower, right? You're not doing as much damage at first, but when you then get better with it and get more accurate with that gun, I'm now doing a shit ton of damage. And I also got to try that in the PvP, which was at first a little weird, but after I then just started hitting those shots, it was a really good experience because I did a crap ton of damage, quite frankly, and that was really awesome. And I also then exchanged my secondary weapon as well, so now I'm not using the sniper rifle anymore, instead a fusion rifle, I almost want to say. I couldn't quite confirm that, but I think it was called a fusion rifle. And essentially how that worked was you hit the trigger, or you hold the trigger much rather, and it then charges up, and after like this charge up then fires quite a few rounds. So it's also kind of a burst thing, but with a charge up, and it's also laser rounds. So I'm really digging that because it just feels great, right? It's not this immediate response there, but it's this cool feeling to hold down and then see the weapon charge up. It looks really nice, and just have all of that stuff fire away at the enemy then. So it's nice to see that there's all these different weapons in there. I didn't expect that. There's now fully auto, there's burst, there's then laser burst, there's sniper rifles, shotguns, magnums, the single shot rifle that I'm using now. Then there's also heavy weapons which I've gotten a chance to try by now. So there have been LMGs actually, so the big guns, which are certainly just doing a great ton of damage, but also very inaccurate, so you either have to fire very slowly, like individual shots, or just be up front, just be very close to an enemy and shoot at them that way. And another heavy weapon that I got to try was a big rocket launcher. So as you can see, there's all kinds of weapons in the game, and that is really nice to see that they have such a variety, because also every weapon that I've used so far has felt very differently. So that is very neat. It's very neat to find that out. And maybe before we talk a little bit more about all these stuff that I've now discovered, having spent a little bit more time with the game, maybe I should focus on the fact that we now stumbled upon this dude right here, right? We were just running around minding our own business, and are now running into this guy minding his own business. And soon enough, Zimmer, as I believe it's called, and I are actually going to join up, just form a fire team together, and then go on missions together, which was a really nice experience, right? Because it is just that seamless. You are running around, and all of a sudden you will see shots being fired in the distance somewhere, and you can then go ahead, talk to the people, team up with them, and then just have a great time together, which was just a very neat experience. That is something that I just don't get from a Borderlands, which is probably the game that you can compare this to the most, right? It is very much like invitation-driven multiplayer. Here it's more of a seamless world. Of course, it's still split up into maps, but then in those maps you can just run into other players, and here's actually where we then join a fire team. So you just hit that button. I actually then cut out me sending him a message, which is what you then do. But yeah, at that point we then joined and started doing stuff together, and that is also what we're doing for the rest of this mission right here. So very, very exciting stuff. And I don't know, I just wanted to point out how seamless all of this now was, because I don't know, I was just running around, all of a sudden, name in the distance, went up to him, joined with him, and then had a good time from that point on. But, right, so I was talking about new stuff that I have discovered while having played the game a little bit more, and having spent some more time in the hub area of the game, I now actually found out that there are also vehicles in the game, which I didn't mention, I don't think. There's a little bike that you can summon, and that is cool in and of itself, right? But you can also buy new vehicles which have then better armor or other abilities and stuff like that, and then you can summon those. There's still quite a few that are locked for me, because you can only go up to level 8 in this alpha, and then in those shops there are some that are only unlocked at like level 10 or something like that, which of course sucks to some extent, but it's probably just Bungie kind of teasing everybody that plays the alpha a little bit, kind of showing them what is still ahead. And that was just a cool discovery that I made earlier this morning, because I didn't know that you could also customize that. So you can't only customize your character and the abilities that he has, but also of course the weapons and what he wears, and also the vehicles apparently. Also your ship, you can apparently buy new ones of that as well. So all of that is content that I didn't quite know about, and content that was really surprising to me after having spent 2.5 hours already. So I would say that at this point I have now spent maybe 3.5 with the game, maybe 4, something along those lines, and I'm still just really enjoying it. It does oftentimes, I will have to criticize it as well. I'm praising it a lot, but I will also have to criticize Destiny a little bit, and all of this might just be because it's an alpha. But of course, since you then can go back to the exploratory missions and can select those beacons again, they will change them up, but oftentimes they will be pretty much the same missions, right? There will be more missions along the lines of kill these dudes, make them drop stuff, and then select that, or collect that stuff much rather. So in that sense, there is repetitive elements there, absolutely, but it's pretty neat that they still change it up then. And I would say that also just being a different character once you then go back to the missions, which isn't necessarily always going to be the case, but it was for me, was a good thing. And then also running into different people doing that was also a very cool thing, because of course then the whole gameplay changes a little bit. The kind of, I don't know, like symbiosis between the players was then also very different. He was a different enemy, not even enemy type, but just character type. He could use different attacks. I could use my plasma grenades. He could maybe use, I believe there's a golden gun or something like that from what I hear. Like a hunter can do like a very powerful shot every once in a while. So there's certainly a lot of variables in the game, a lot of factors, and that's something I really just appreciate. I'm having a great time with Destiny. But yeah, so I discovered all those things. What else is there to talk about right now? Maybe I should give you a little bit of a preview. I mean, I already kind of hinted at some of the stuff that is happening in the next episode, but I also want to confirm that after that, I'm also going to show off some of the PvP stuff, which I believe I hinted at in the end of that last episode. So while we were checking out the whole like mission selection screen, where you could select either the tower or the earth or this whole crucible things to the side, the crucibles very much is the PvP, and there's currently one game mode available, which is essentially like a domination thing. So you can yeah, just hop onto a map. There's different ones. I don't know how many. I've played 2 so far, one very much being like close quarters and the other one being much more open, and also having vehicles. The bigger one had vehicles, and you would then have to capture the flags. So it was all certainly familiar stuff. And playing the multiplayer, like the PvP stuff, also reminded me very much of Halo. But then again, I also do think that maybe we should talk a little bit more about that once we then get to that episode. But for now, that is what I'm going to say about the PvP. Certainly look forward to that episode as well. Anyway, yeah, so for the rest of this episode, Zimmer here and I, we're just going to run around and fight some pretty high level like enemies actually. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's locked to the area, but all of a sudden we ended up fighting level 8 or level 9 enemies here. And at this point, I'm only level 5. I did say that 8 is very much the level cap, so we are basically fighting some of the strongest enemies right now. And it was possible, I believe we ended up dying every once in a while. Maybe I cut that out though, just for the sake of, I don't know, giving you actual gameplay and not just some death screen. We actually, yeah, just went ahead, still fought him, had a great time with that. It often took us a pretty long time to take one of these guys down, especially the Hive Knights, I believe as they're called, were quite the challenge because they also heal up. They always just put up this shield and then hide behind it and heal while that is happening. So those sucked for the most part until we then figured out, or until I then figured out, I should say, that the sniper rifle that I'm currently wielding right here is insane. It does so much damage if you then focus on the head and mostly shoot it, that you will take off a lot of stuff. So that is basically me confirming that it really matters where you shoot. Shooting in the head does a lot more damage than just shooting in the torso or wherever. So also in that sense, I guess, very similar to a Halo. Halo was very much a game that was hit zone focused, right? You would win in multiplayer if you shot at somebody's head and he was just shooting at your torso. Kind of the way it should be for the most part. And it's really something that I appreciate. It matters less, of course, in PvE right here, but in PvP that is certainly something you want to focus on as well. Right, there's not much left here in the demo, but all we're doing is, I believe, finishing up this whole mission right here. There's a new enemy type right in front of us right there, the big flying orb, which I believe protects the enemies that are surrounding it. So you kind of want to separate them, right? Maybe have one guy focus on the orb, have one guy focus on the other guy, and then try to prevent the orb from healing that guy and then taking him down, and only then focusing on the orb itself. Or you could also alternatively take down the orb first, but they have a lot of health. At least they did right here. Of course, us being kind of low level, it ended up being like that, and we had to fire at them quite a bit. It's kind of funny too. I believe this is something I haven't talked about yet, but ammo is something you have to worry about quite often. Something I didn't expect, but yeah, oftentimes I just found myself running out of ammo, and I really like that. And the reason why I like that is that this way it makes you have to move. You cannot just sit somewhere and fire at stuff repeatedly. Eventually you will have to go out and look for ammo, and oftentimes just put yourself in really bad situations because of that. So oftentimes I would just have to run into the middle of some kind of conflict and grab all the ammo on the ground, only to then run back and take cover. And that is really nice, because that way you will not always be in this fantastic position. You might be for a good while, but once you then run out of ammo, you then have to go back and fetch some on the battlefield. And that is something I really started appreciating the more I played the game. So that's certainly a positive, looking at just how the Comet is designed. I already said that it feels great, but also the kind of background mechanics to the Comet are also pretty interesting as well. It's not just that you have all the ammo or that shit recharges or whatever. Your health certainly does, but ammo is something you will constantly have to pick up. And What else is there? I basically already talked about all the stuff that I wanted to talk about, but there's still a little bit of the mission left. There's actually also more that I recorded even after this, and this whole exploration mode right here, and this whole exploration mission. I'm not exactly sure what they call it actually, but it's something like that. I believe they mention exploration somewhere in the title of that. And yeah, there's still a little bit that I ended up doing. I believe the scout mission, which I talked about, is still something Zimmer and I ended up doing, but I don't know. I didn't feel like that was all too necessary to show off. Instead, this episode is going to focus on some of these side missions, and then, as I was saying, next time we're already going to move on to the more driven mission and also the final mission of the alpha. I don't know, it's not necessarily final. It's not like after that the alpha just ends, you can still hop back into the missions, but that is essentially the climax of the alpha at that point. And as I was already saying, you can look forward to quite a few boss fights in that mission as well. It ended up taking us quite a bit of time too. I don't even know how I'm going to be able to edit that down just yet, but I don't know. I'm probably going to figure it out, at least I would assume so. So maybe another thing that I'm now realizing again, also something you will notice, is that not all the enemies are of the same faction, right? You will have these hive guys, which are more like the flood type of enemy, and more of a monster, you could almost say. And then you of course also have the fallen, which are more organized and more technologically advanced almost. And it's nice to see that you will also find those two factions battling each other on the maps, so you're not always running into these quiet situations. You will also oftentimes see enemies fighting each other, like very much NPC enemies fighting each other. And then of course, as I was already saying a little bit earlier, you will then oftentimes also have online players fighting enemies that are fighting each other. So it has a neat atmosphere. It really does. And hopefully I'm going to be able to show off all of that a little bit more in the next episode as well, because it's of course a more driven mission, so there is more atmosphere here. Or is more atmosphere there than there is here. I mean, it has a pretty neat atmosphere still, this being an open world and stuff like that, so all things considered, there's still quite a bit of atmosphere, at least in my opinion, and that is mostly thanks to the art design, I would say. But of course, here the gameplay is the most apparent. Right here you can really see that we are farming essentially. So this is basically the game, the closest the game gets to farming. Us just running around gathering experience, fulfilling these missions. So all of that is really nice. I do still need to stress that I'm a big fan of Destiny. I'm still a little skeptical. I talked about how maybe it gets a little bit too repetitive after a while. This is still very much just an alpha, so I can't 100% judge it just yet, but it's a little mild concern that I have. The overall gameplay that I have experienced so far has been fantastic, quite frankly, but how well is all of that going to just stick around, right? How much content are they going to be giving you? I don't know, I couldn't really tell you, but I'm certainly going to go ahead and show off a little bit more next time, so hopefully you guys are all looking forward to that. It's once again time to say goodbye, so yeah, I'll catch you later, and have a good one. Goodbye, guys.